Hello and welcome to Weird Around Illinois. As we get into the Halloween season, I find myself thinking about all kinds of monsters and mythic creatures, and I realize there's one that we haven't really talked about yet, and that's the zombie. So let's talk about zombies, and let's get weird. So why don't we start by defining exactly what a zombie is? I think the most basic definition would be something that dies and then comes back to life.
Yeah, pretty much.
Now, obviously, pop culture has enhanced that definition a little bit. You know, most zombies you see in movies are flesh-eating.
Yeah, and like sometimes their jaw is half broke and they're wobbling around.
Yeah, sometimes, zombies are completely without any thought at all. They're just like mindless automatons, or sometimes they're capable of basic thought, or sometimes they're under the control of other people. But the basic tenet still seems to be there. Something that dies and comes back to life. And usually for nefarious purposes, whether it's to eat you or haunt you or kill you or whatever. So zombies are quite popular in pop culture. And they have been for a while, but they really got a significant boost in the last 10 or 15 years with the Walking Dead series. I don't even know how many series they have now. It seems like there's a new one every 2 weeks, but the original was The Walking Dead, based on a set of comics that was wildly popular. But zombies actually go back much further than that in pop culture. I think the first time the word zombie was ever used may have been the movie Night of the Living Dead in the 1960s. George A. Romero, fantastic film for its day. Spawned a couple of sequels, one of which was, in my opinion, really good, called Dawn of the Dead, and one of which, in my opinion, was absolute garbage, called Day of the Dead. And then every sequel after that, please, for the love of God, don't ever watch it.
So there's really no in between that. Either pretty good or really, really bad.
Yeah, things went downhill fast after Day of the Dead. There were some other, like, non-Romero spin-offs of that as well. You've got the Return of the Living Dead series, which actually featured zombies who were slightly more intelligent. They could speak a little bit, and they were faster. There were a number of cheap knockoff zombie movies scattered throughout the years. There was one of my favorite, like, crappy horror film zombie movies was called Night of the Creeps, which featured alien parasites burrowing into people's brains and turning them into zombies.
Yikes. And
then you've got kind of the new generation of zombie movies that came out with the movie, 28 Days Later. And in that one, they weren't even, in my opinion, they weren't technically zombies because I don't think they ever died. They called it the rage virus. And it caused people to just run around killing other people the minute they got infected with it. And that kind of started this whole medical zombie craze where, following that, it was 28 weeks later, and then not long, well, I guess it was a little time after that, but World War Z came out, although that was also based on comic books. But again, it was your classic medical thing. It was like a form of rabies that was infecting people and causing them to act very aggressive towards other people. So zombies basically are all over the place. I even, at one point, wrote a flesh-eating zombie musical, but we won't go into that right now.
No, I think we should.
And obviously zombies have always held a place in my heart. I've written a blog about zombies going way back when, and basically watched every zombie movie I could get my hands on.
Yeah, it seems like you know a ton about those movies in the past.
Yeah, I do know a ton about the movies. I don't know as much about actual zombification and actual zombie encounters that have happened in real life. And that's where I'm going to lean on you guys a little bit. But why don't we start by talking about real life zombies in the animal kingdom? Because this is where zombification, if that's a word, actually seems to occur.
Yeah. So first we could talk about, like, insects. There's apparently a fungus that could basically, like, transform ants. It doesn't really transform their appearance much, but it can, like, affect how they move, and it can change, like, their brain, basically. It basically just controls their whole brain and whole body. They're not necessarily dead, but it can literally control it.
I'd read that in carpenter ants, sometimes it can make them, like, climb up to the top of the highest thing they can reach and just die there, so the wind spreads the fungus.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's brutal.
Yeah.
And that fungus is actually what inspired a series. I think it's maybe on Amazon. The Last of Us. The fungus makes the jump to humans and apparently causes them to act the same way.
Yeah, imagine if that actually happened. That'd be horrible.
Yeah.
And this fungus can also affect like other insects, like cicadas, for example. It's interesting we don't hear this much in like the news or anything, but it's such a kind of a strong thing.
Yeah, and I think it was the podcast, a couple podcasts before this. You mentioned the zombie cicada, and that terrified me that day because I had no idea that was going around.
Yeah.
That's gonna be horrible if I see one of those. Actually, I won't even be able to notice it, but it's still terrifying to know.
Well, you can recognize them. They had like spots, I think.
Oh no.
Because I knew people who were like going around saying stomp on the ones that have spots because they're spreading the zombie virus.
That's creepy.
Yeah. Now I know spiders sometimes go through zombification, but I think there's actually two different modes for that, right? I mean, they get the fungus like the ants do, or at least I've seen at least one case of that.
Yeah, some can get that.
But isn't there like a wasp or something that causes something with spiders?
Yeah, so basically like there's a wasp that can like lay eggs in the abdomen of spider.
Oh.
And those eggs turn into like larvae, or larvae come out of them. And then that basically takes control of the spider.
Oh. So like a walking egg carrier?
Yeah, basically. And eventually, like the ant, the spider eventually dies. But before it dies, it actually makes like a net.
The animal kingdom is kind of brutal.
Yeah.
Coming up with the new strategies, I guess.
Yeah. Yikes. And I thought Night of the Living Dead was scary. I think this stuff is much. This is like if you were to combine Night of the Living Dead with Aliens.
Yeah.
Yikes. All right, well, let's go to something more tame. Let's go to human zombies.
Yeah.
So, we usually, when I think of like credible cases of human zombies, and yeah, I guess credible is a stretch in some cases, but I think of like voodoo. I think of the islands, particularly Haiti, witch doctors. They believe they can gain control over somebody by basically killing them and reanimating their body. And when they're reanimated, that person has to do their bidding. Now, you would think this would be like an ancient thing, but people still believe in it. I worked with a Haitian guy, and he very strongly believed in zombies. And there is actually some clinical support for this. Apparently there's a toxin from a certain type of fish. I want to say it's a puffer fish.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that if you were to ingest it in just the right amount, it would lower your heart rate so much that it would be undetectable, and you would be paralyzed. So basically it creates the illusion that you died. And so if this happens to you in Haiti, they bury you, they have a funeral, everybody thinks you're gone. Then the witch doctor, who knows better, goes and digs you up 2 or 3 days later when the toxin should have worn off, opens the thing, performs a ritual and, waves his arm over you and says, "You were dead, now your soul belongs to me."
Wow. So that's borderline manipulation then also.
Yeah, it's mind control, essentially.
Yeah. And it's really interesting because they're still technically living. They still need like water and food, all that stuff, because they're not dead like actual like zombies are.
Right.
Yeah, and the toxin that you were talking about from the pufferfish reminds me of a different situation, or a similar situation, with drugs. Fentanyl, which is like one of the most powerful drugs ever. If you see videos of people on the street who have taken that, they're falling over looking just like zombies.
Yeah.
It's a very, very terrifying and similar situation to the pufferfish. I mean, they're probably near death at that point.
That's definitely something I wanted to bring up. Like drugs seem to really change like people's brain, similar to how like the fungus can change insects' brain.
Yeah, and obviously it also changes the way they think and the way they will act towards others, I mean, they may as well be zombies.
Yeah.
Did you guys see anything about the drug crocodile?
No.
No.
It was an Eastern European drug, and they were calling it for a while the zombie drug for the exact reasons that you were describing. I don't know if it had fentanyl in it or what, but it basically turned people into zombies.
Yeah, if it's enough, it'll turn them into that.
Yeah. And of course, there are some mental disorders that cause people to act like a zombie as well. Although some of those will actually cause people to go violent. Well, I guess fentanyl will too. And like take bites out of people and stuff.
Yeah.
That's why every so often you'll get a report from some emergency room somewhere that there's, either a corpse found partially eaten with human bite marks on it, or they'll find, someone's attacking someone by biting them. And the doomsayers are all kind of out there saying, okay, this is that zombie apocalypse we've been waiting for 60 years. Here we go.
Oh, it's just a guy on drugs or somebody with a mental disorder.
Right. So, knowing how zombies occur in the animal kingdom, knowing how zombies occur through chemistry, with whether it's through the voodoo rituals or through the drugs, or even through body chemistry, through mental disorders, and knowing what we've all had to learn over the last 5 years or so about viruses, thanks to our good friend COVID-19,
Yeah.
how feasible do you think it is that there could actually be human zombies at some point? Like more than just the one-off, one person acting like a zombie, like a zombie epidemic or a zombie apocalypse.
Well, if that bug virus that we were talking about earlier can actually eventually spread to humans, that would be probably the most effective way of turning everybody into zombies.
Yeah. And I could imagine the government could try to do that too, especially if they want like a good military.
That would be a real story there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, there are multiple ways for that to be possible, I think.
Yeah.
You bring up a quote I heard from a friend a while back. We were talking about inoculations, vaccines, and I get some vaccines, some I don't. You know how I am about that stuff. But this guy told me he was in the Army for a long time. And he said, when Uncle Sam tells you to take something, you do not take it if you can avoid it. You just had me thinking about that with your zombie military idea.
Yeah. Well, I heard that on a podcast, and I just wanted to mention it because it's something that, when you think about it, really could be possible.
Yeah, it really could. I mean, I like to think we wouldn't do that here, but oh my gosh, you see these other countries where they're doing everything they can to get people out there. They just had that case a few weeks ago where the people from India were conscripted into the Russian army because they were asked to sign papers that they didn't understand because they don't read Russian. And they were told they were getting consulting jobs in Russia, and next thing you know, there was a rifle in their hands and they were fighting in the Ukraine. It's amazing, when a country gets desperate, they will do whatever they have to put the soldiers out there.
Yeah, and that reminds me of a show we were watching, The Unexplained.
Mm-hmm.
They were talking about ultrasound, or extreme sound waves.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's a way they could use sound waves to turn people into zombies in like the weird way as a weapon.
That's another theory I've heard, like sound frequencies.
Yes. Yeah, that's probably a whole other podcast in and of itself, because I've got some stories on that. But sound can manipulate people to do all kinds of weird things. All you have to do is watch a concert and see the people dancing in the aisles, and you know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess the consensus here is that it would be possible to make a wave of zombies, and it might even be easier than we want it to be.
There's a myth that I heard from that podcast too. Apparently, if you put salt around your house or something, or take in salt in some way, that could reverse the effects of the voodoo stuff.
Interesting.
So, just something to keep in mind, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. In case I'm hanging out with my Haitian friend and I suddenly become a zombie.
Yeah, exactly.
throw salt at them.
Yeah. Well, that's our take on zombies, and I'd love to know if any of you have a different take on zombies or want to dive a little more in depth on any of the things we've talked about, or if you've ever seen a zombie or seen something that you thought might be a zombie. We'd love to hear the story. As always, thank you for listening, thanks for subscribing, and please tell your friends.